Thank you all for joining us today. Before I get started, I wanted to first extend our condolences to the Pia family. It's been a lot of things that ranchers have been going through as well as farms. So I wanted to first of all thank all of you for joining us here today. This is a joint committee with Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism, as well as Chair from Agriculture and Environment. So we'll be having some of our colleagues running in and out of the meeting today. So bear with us as we try to get more information on how we can address the issues that we've been facing for the past many years. So on my committee, Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism, I have Senator Favela, Imagine, Senator Wakai, Senator Fukunaga, and then Senator Kim. And then on the opposite side, under Energy, I'll have Senator Gabbard introduce his team as well.
I, as Chair of the Agriculture Environment Committee, my Vice Chair, Jim Richards. One of the other members is Linda Coit, as well as Senator Carl Rhodes and Senator Brenton Awa.
Okay, so thank you for joining us. Of course, this is just an informational briefing. So let me just jump right into it because I know we're going to be crammed on time. Due to the recent events, the purpose of this meeting is due to the recent events. This informational briefing is to address the safety issues faced by farmers and ranchers in relation to agriculture-related crimes, theft, trespassing, poaching, etc. This briefing is intended to identify the root of these issues, address previous roadblocks, and identify potential solutions with the safety of all individuals being at the forefront. So first on our agenda, I want to start with the farmers and ranchers perspective. If I can have Hawaii Farm Bureau Brian Miyamoto, as well as Hawaii Cattlemen's Council Nicole Galase start up. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Coit, Senator Gabbard, Senator Richards, Senator Favela. I'm Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. With me, we have Nicole Galase, Managing Director of Hawaii Cattlemen's Council. Also, we have all of the ranchers that are here for Cattlemen's Day. We also have the President of the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council, Mr. John Morgan, and the President of the Hawaii Farm Bureau, Mr. Darren Strand. So thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity to present on behalf of farmers and ranchers. If I can start off, I heard a great speech and quote today. Agriculture is hard. It's early, it's late, it's stinky, and it needs support. And there was some wise advice given to the legislators. Please talk to a rancher or farmer before making decisions. I think that is very smart idea, especially when it comes to agricultural crimes.
Excuse me, who made that quote? Could you cite the
We have
author?
a young rancher, A.R. Richards.
Just for the record.
Gotta cite your
For the
sources.
It's my reference here. Okay, agricultural crime is a persistent problem facing farmers and ranchers. We deal with weather, drought, pests, weeds, disease, unstable markets, transportation, and labor issues, and also a changing climate. And they all contribute to the uncertainty that farmers and ranchers have to face on a daily basis. Few businesses face these challenges, yet we are charged with producing the food, feed, fiber, fuel, and flowers for the 99% that don't farm. Add in the constant threat and impacts of trespass, theft, and vandalism, and it's a wonder that farmers and ranchers continue to do what they do. Okay. On this next slide, we have two surveys that were done by the USDA Department of Agriculture and the Farm Bureau. The first one is 2014. I'm going to focus on the most recent one, 2019. In 2019, and it was an ag crime survey, the total value of theft and vandalism losses, as well as security costs from Hawaii farms, was about $14.4 million. That's 10% of the Hawaii net farm income of $142 million. 10% of your net income is going to deal with ag crimes. Okay? Theft of farm commodities, materials, equipment, and other property was about $2.62 million. Vandalism estimated over $500,000, and security costs to prevent theft and vandalism total $11.2 million. Cameras, fences, security guards, $11.2 million just in that year. there were nearly 14,200, or there were 14,262 trespass incidents just in that year. Now, these numbers are grossly underrepresented. We just don't report. So we don't even know what those true numbers are, but those are big numbers to begin with. Okay? Here's a summary of some of the issues that our ranchers and farmers face. First of all, farms, they're large. Farms and ranches are large. They're normally in these rural areas that are sparsely populated, so we don't have a lot of law enforcement in these areas. It's difficult to monitor your property, difficult to fence, very costly. Okay? Unfortunately, we've heard, and this is no knock on law enforcement, but ag crimes don't seem to be high priority crimes. There are other crimes, murder, assaults, rape. Agriculture crimes are agriculture crimes that we need help with. Prosecution is extremely difficult, and if any of the ranchers or farmers get to talk, they'll tell you of examples of the difficulty of prosecution. And unfortunately, it will lead or may lead to retribution. We find the crime, find the criminal, police may arrest, maybe they get prosecuted, maybe it's a slap on the wrist. Instead of them coming back and stealing some fruits or trying to poach livestock, they'll come back and burn our tractors, burn our storage sheds, chop down 8,500 papaya trees. Okay? One of the other problems is on our side, farmers and ranchers, we don't report the crimes. We've kind of stopped because we feel sometimes things don't happen or there's no resolution. We also have immigrant farmers. A lot of times there's a language barrier issue. And again, the whole idea with our farmers being in rural areas. So sometimes we don't find out that we had some type of crime till a few days later, especially for these ranchers with big ranch lands. There are laws on the books for ownership as far as when you're transporting agriculture products. However, the ownership form is very easy to falsify. You can just create it on the computer. And we do need to work with law enforcement, the entire law enforcement community, include our police departments, our county prosecutors, and even our judges to educate them on the agricultural laws that are on the books. We do have laws on the books. We just need better enforcement of those laws. Okay. So just kind of a summary of what I said. So agriculture theft, 2019 numbers, 3,616 thefts reported, $2.62 million was the loss. Okay. And then we have a breakdown of the different islands. And you see Hawaii Island is by far the biggest, 1.5 million. Okay. Crimes have become rampant on all the islands. Again, the farmers, there's no way for the farmers and ranchers to guard their islands. I mean, their entire property. It's just, there's too much. Farmers can't afford to hire security guards or install surveillance equipment, and they really shouldn't have to. Our police departments are trying to help, but they certainly don't have the staff either to be everywhere and at all times. And it is heartbreaking to invest financially and emotionally in farming and ranching and spend years of backbreaking work, only to see it wiped out in a flash when criminals brazenly access the property or steal or vandalize whatever they can get their hands on. Something that our nursery folks are dealing with, especially in Waimanalo. We've heard stories where criminals will target the higher price products. They'll go onto the property. They won't steal it. They'll take it to the board of the property. They'll come back up because now they're kind of only trespassing. And they'll wait, and when it's clear, they'll jump, and it's a few minutes, and then they'll leave with those plants. And there's really no way to trace them. You can put an apple tag in the soil, try to tag the branches. They'll find them, they'll cut them off. Once it's stolen, it's stolen. It'll be sold somewhere. Okay? Something must be done. Over the years, farmers and ranchers have worked with the police, prosecutors, and even the Attorney General's office to figure out what we can do. And we will have some suggestions at the end of this presentation. We've been told to call the police and wait for them to come. That may take several hours because they're short-staffed, but that they will come and to make a report. And we've had instances where sometimes no report is taken. We don't get our livestock back. We don't get our crops back, and we can't farm where the tractors have been set when our tractors have been set ablaze. Farmers and ranchers sometimes don't hear anything back from police. We recognize that enforcement resources are limited and that agriculture theft is not a high priority compared with other crimes. However, if the state is sincere and really wants to increase food production, we need help with agricultural crimes. That is why we support SB 2363, which will set up that pilot program. Essentially appropriate $50,000 to each of the counties to develop a private pilot program to have agricultural crimes personnel in the county prosecutor's office. We're even suggesting maybe like with DLNR, we give Department of Agriculture some police powers. If you have somebody dedicated to investigating agricultural crimes, they're gonna know the industry, they're gonna know the farmers, they're gonna know the ranchers, and they're really gonna know what's going on. And we think that will be a better way to address some of these ag crimes, because if not, we're just gonna continue to see it go on and on and on. We got some pictures here, okay? Doesn't matter what time of day it is. These brazenly steal from our farms. They're two images from the same farm. They come during the day and they come during the night. And once it comes off of the farm, there's no way to get that crop back. And people think, well, it's just a pineapple or a couple of pineapples. But if you have that thousands and thousands of times and thousands of pounds, it's no longer a pineapple or a papaya or cattle. It costs the farmers and ranchers money, and we're focused on invasive species, spending money there, focusing on increasing our infrastructure, and now we gotta focus on $14.4 million on ag crimes. Here's more pictures for you. On the left, people illegally entering a farm to try to steal some papayas. Fortunately, the picture's been taken by the farmer. Brazen, just no regard. On the right is actually a piece of equipment, a skid steer, that was stolen from a farm. Okay, fortunately, it was recovered. However, the police held it for 2 years because it took that long to truly identify who the owner was, because they took off all of the serial numbers and all identifying information from that piece of equipment. It's like getting your car stolen and they take out the VIN number, right? There's no identification. The farmer did ultimately get it back. It took 2 years, right? Sometimes our farmers and ranchers don't get their equipment back. Okay.
So unfortunately, we also have to deal with theft of cattle. This brand here, brands are meant to identify cattle to their owners. The issue is that Hawaii doesn't have brand inspection resources. This means that the brand inspectors who are supposed to deter stealing, the program isn't there to follow them through from different bills of sales to the harvest facility. Our folks at DOA, they're doing their best, but they do need the resources to be able to respond to issues when their brands aren't matching up and people are stealing cattle. The 2019 Hawaii Agricultural Theft and Vandalism Survey showed 1,112 incidents of vandalism, resulting in $502,000 in loss to farms and ranches. Farmers and ranchers don't just deal with theft, but also vandalism. The picture on the left is from a damaged tractor from a farm in Maui, and the picture on the right is from a farm on Oahu. An individual had broken into the farm, damaged the gate, vehicles and equipment, and tried to steal a delivery van and trailer. Sadly, this ag theft crime is growing. We have heard that it has exploded in the past just couple of years in Hawaii. Farmers and ranchers are often easy targets because there is no prosecution. Despite efforts to put in cameras, form community ag watch groups, the criminals unfortunately know that nothing's going to be done, so they're going to chance doing it. If they get caught, it's probably going to be okay. Another example, in 2011, papaya farms in Kapoho had 10 acres of papaya vandalized, 8,500 papaya trees destroyed. Not only did they lose income from that crop, but also the revenue from future harvests from those trees. Next one. So these pictures that we're showing, these aren't what we had in our archives. Over the past couple days, we asked our farmers and ranchers, send us what's happening. We got flooded. I have to say that we didn't show all the pictures because some of them are graphic. But here with the vandalism, gates, sure, they can go and fix a gate. But often these gates are cut over and over again. Next one. This is not only extra time and money the rancher has to spend mending that gate, but during that time that the gate is cut, the cattle get loose. They can get onto the road, onto other people's property, and it poses a danger both for the livestock and for the community. These posted signs did not deter this behavior. In this incident of arson, around $500,000 for each of those tractors. It's not minuscule. Poachers. When poachers trespass onto ag property, their dogs attack cattle. Here we have a cattle with his ear bitten off. In the middle, that's a Wagyu cattle who was just shot and left there. It's one of our rancher's son's animals that he was raising. This dog, left in the pasture. The issue with the dog is that he'll terrorize the cattle when a lot of the ranchers use dogs to manage their cattle. So they'll be skittish when ranchers try to use low-stress handling techniques.
Agricultural trespass. The 2019 Hawaii Agricultural Theft and Vandalism Survey showed 14,262 incidents of trespass, resulting in unknown loss of farms. There's no numbers attached to that, and again, underreported. Similar to theft and vandalism numbers, the trespass numbers are lower than the actual incidents due to, again, underreporting. Farms and ranches across the state are being used without permission for hiking, hunting, dirt biking, and worse, illegal activities. And let me stop there. Our farms and ranchers are not against the hunters. We support the hunters. They actually help with some of those invasive and feral animals. Legitimate hunters work with our farmers and ranchers. And simple ask on written permission, we think isn't asking for a lot. But again, we support our hunters. Farmers and ranchers themselves are hunters. So this is not about us against the hunters. We absolutely support the hunters. They support farmers and ranchers. We're talking about some of those bad actors who come on illegally, poach, and pose dangers. Our hard-earned crops are stolen, our livestock endangered by cut fences, and we are used as a rubbish dump, a place to abuse alcohol and drugs and commit other crimes. In addition, there are individuals who trespass, hurt themselves, and then threaten to sue us for their injuries. We need stronger landowner liability protections. We cannot afford to lose everything as we work so hard to create in litigation, or we can't afford to lose everything we work so hard and lose it due to litigation, due to trespass. There is certainly no benefit provided to a farmer or rancher from these trespassers or their activities, and there should be only minimum duty of care owed to the landowner. Over the last several years, incidents of livestock slaughtering, theft, vandalism, crop destruction, and poaching have become commonplace on farms and ranches on every island. These activities must be stopped. Criminals have learned that there is no practical enforcement of the laws to prevent armed thieves and vandals from trespassing, stealing, and destroying others' livelihood. If caught, these miscreants claim to be hunters and state that they have verbal permission to be on property. An example is, for those of you homeowners that maybe have a yard, I don't think you would like someone without permission crossing over your property with weapons, with dogs that could potentially harm your pets, your keiki, or even yourselves. Again, permission is one thing. We're talking about those that do not have the permission, that are coming onto the ranch land and the farmlands. The burden should never be on a rancher farmer to prove that they did not give permission to a gun-wielding trespasser to access their property. Without knowing the intent of an armed trespasser on their property, a farmer or rancher may reasonably believe that the trespasser is there to steal their equipment, livestock, or crops. They may even think that their home and family are threatened, and this could lead them to take steps to protect themselves. The scenario is just too dangerous for both the legitimate hunter and the farmer, and it can be avoided by the simple act of obtaining prior permission in writing so there is no confusion or misunderstanding. Again, a legitimate law-abiding hunter would not object to this simple request since they are already required by law to have the permission from the landowner. For many years, the cattlemen and the Farm Bureau have worked with police, prosecutors, and DLNR to find solutions to trespass, theft, and vandalism problems. And SB 2546 will help clarify and help enforcement of current laws that already prohibit trespass and prohibit hunting without permission. I believe that is the hunting guide bill that is going through this session.
So here we just have more examples of what's been happening. Just recently, we have video of people stealing machines, breaking into ranch offices. This series of shots is from one ranch location. This isn't even all of them, but if you look at the timestamps, they're all within the past 2 months, and there were more. The entrance here is to 1,000 acres of ranch land and 400 acres of papaya. That's a lot of food. And these folks are just entering, even though there's signs posted. These are pictures of trespassing poachers, and we make that distinguishing mark. Hunters are different from poachers. Poachers do not get permission, they're not allowed on the land. That's why we support that bill, to just simply get written permission. It's easy to do, it's a matter of safety. In the case of these poachers, the rancher didn't know they were there, and they do pose a safety hazard to their ranch hands and their family members. Next. We understand that there are many crimes that law enforcement has to deal with, but these ag crimes are getting more and more consistent and dangerous. In this case here on the right, the teen was caught leaving the ranch with his rifle. The rancher didn't know this person, and they couldn't know how he will react to being confronted. He's holding a weapon. In the case of the photo on the left, the police did come. This resulted in over a year of court appearances, which the ranchers had to attend, take time out. The poachers were found guilty. He got community service. In another case, a rancher confronted a poacher who told him to his face, quote, "For the money it costs to get busted, I'll pay that every time to hunt your land." This is a rancher who does allow hunting on his land, to those who he gives permission to. In another case, the rancher caught someone on video scoping out a gate, coming back to cut it. The rancher followed through with reporting. He had great help from the police, really helpful in getting the criminal. But in the end, the judge charged him $28, which is the cost of the lock. So these penalties are not deterring the crimes. And I wish I had the over 50 ranchers that are here at the Capitol behind me, but I asked them this morning, who of you has had to deal with vandalism on your ranch? The hands went up. Who of you have had to deal with theft? The hands stayed up. And this one, who of you have been confronted by trespassers and felt like your life was threatened? Hands stayed up, because there are people who have been faced with trespassers. You don't know how they're going to react. And in the case of Cranston Pia, it did not turn out well. We have had so many ranchers get by lucky. But we are going to give time to speak about Cranston in just a little bit. But I want to pass it over to Brian to wrap this up.
So I want you guys to wrap it up. We have all the information you guys have. I want the committee have an opportunity to exchange questions, not just with you guys, but also with the different agencies that we have here. So if we can kind of sum it up, Brian, just so that we can engage.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chair. We're actually on our last slide. And I'd like to add that when the committees asked us to participate in this, we did the same as Nicole. We reached out to our farmers across the state, and immediately they sent examples and pictures and even some of the police reports. Again, there's not a farmer out there as well as ranchers that have not been impacted by some type of ag crime in their operations. So we've done workshops. We've worked with farmers and ranchers. We've worked with the police. The last one was years ago. We went down to Wailua. We had the police with us, HPD. Farm Bureau, and we had Pacific Gateway to do some translation or interpreters because of the different ethnic groups that are part of the farming community. And here are some of the recommendations that came up, again, for our non-English speakers, having officers maybe that can speak their language, or at least someone that can help translate. Again, there's a difficulty in the language barrier there. Updated and accurate training for law enforcement community, maybe that's written wrong. We're working more with the farming community and the law enforcement community on what those agriculture crimes are. In Kunia, we're hosting, I think, quarterly meetings with law enforcement. So police would come. I know they do that in Waimanalo also. The Attorney General at that time was coming out and trying to find solutions for agricultural crimes. Follow up with ag crime victims and case status. We hear that a lot, where our farmers and ranchers feel like there isn't a lot of follow up from the police departments. This, again, is on the farmers and ranchers, better reporting of ag crimes. Maybe developing a separate ag theft form with specific questions. Again, a more custom form for agriculture crimes. Develop an online reporting form, again, making it easier to report. Crime stoppers for agriculture. We do have Crime Stoppers for different things. We have regular Crime Stoppers, I think, for keiki, Crime Stoppers for animals, Crime Stoppers for agriculture. A reporting mechanism, again, with language barriers, right? Maybe a separate phone number. I know these are all costs. They all take resources. These are just recommendations from the farmers and ranchers. A system discourages the selling of stolen agricultural products, and I believe maybe the department's going to talk about what the laws are, other agencies. But we need to do better monitoring, because we know stolen goods are being sold at farmers markets, Chinatown, roadside stands. And then the funding mechanism, funding for a dedicated staffer in each county prosecutor's office, that's the bill that's going through, or a law enforcement branch within the Department of Agriculture. And we didn't talk to the Department of Agriculture about that, but DLNR does that, I think, with DoCare. So something that we would ask the legislature to look at. We just need help with ag crimes. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Of course, I want to thank all of you ranchers for being here. I know you guys got a lot of work to do out on the ranch. So a minute, an hour is a lot of your time away from what you guys do, which is an admirable profession. I'm going to open it up to questions to the panel that you guys might have for Nicole as well as Brian. But I'd like to hand it over, if you would indulge me a little, to Senator Richards first.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. And first of all, I'm going to echo what Senator DeCoite has said. Thanks so much for you guys for taking time out of your schedule to be here. I know it's tough. And I also want to thank all the departments that have been here. Yes, industry, but departments as well, to have this conversation and talk story. This has been something that we've been working on. This is near and dear to me because I have been dealing with this for a long time, and it's never, ever simple. Brian, why don't you guys just come back up? To your point, and I appreciate the agricultural crimes recommendations that you put forth. Communication is a big deal with this stuff. I'm sure you've given a lot of thought, and I don't want to take a lot of time right now, Chair, but from my perspective, these are policy things, great, but what's the low-hanging fruit? And every pun intended on that one right now. What can we do quickly from industry standpoint to make a difference?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I think the bill that's going to put an agricultural crimes personnel in each of the county prosecutor's office, I think the ask is $50,000 per county. I think that would be a start. There was a pilot that was done in Hawai'i Island, on Hawai'i Island. I think when Director Enright was at the Department of Agriculture. So I think learned lessons can be gathered from the successes that they may have there to guide the counties going forward. But again, somebody dedicated that understands agriculture, I think will go a long way to help. Because not only will they be helping maybe with some of the investigation, but working directly with the farmers and ranchers. Different producers have different ideas on what the solutions are for their particular operations.
Senator Gabbard? I think Chair, that if we, moving forward, to get information out, because I don't want to get bogged down in the details, so, thank you.
Questions? Senator Kim?
I certainly agree that the penalties should be greater and they need more enforcement, but just how do you get more enforcement even though the penalties are going to be, if we raise it, but if we still don't have enough police or law enforcement out there, how do we enforce it?
I think that's the reason why we said we're going to do our job to make sure our ranchers and farmers are reporting. Because right now, it looks like there's not a lot happening because it's a burden to report and then nothing happens. But they're starting to understand if they report, that data gets seen, and then we can get more resources hopefully for the enforcement because we know that the law enforcement has other priorities. If we can get resources specifically for ag, then they'll show up.
What about the DLNR enforcement? If there are state agricultural lands that the farmers are farming, do they provide any kind of enforcement or?
From what I understand, DoCare does address these issues, especially when it comes to hunting, because to be a hunter, you need to have a hunting license. So that comes under them.
And is that effective? I mean, have they been effective? on
I
those
actually
ones?
just heard recently from our our Big Island ranchers that with the influx of new hires for DoCare, they've been seeing more happening.
Thank
So
you.
the resources are needed though.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. So let me just elaborate on the DoCare division, and I know Deputy is here in the crowd. As most of us know, even when DoCare does come out, it all depends. Private land, they won't touch it. They're limited to what they can do, which is why we have asked for them to be here. I think the bigger problem for us is that DLNR issues hunting permits for $25 with no land approval by the owner. And it has been a challenge for every one of us, which is why the bill is back again that I introduced this year, is because we have struggled with the vast amount of land. Even while you will hear this constantly, coming in by gathering rights. But you still need permission. You still need permission. And the reason for that is because most of us have had employees work on our farms and ranches, and we do not appreciate bullets flying across and hitting one of our family members or employees. So I urge you guys to push on that bill, because if not, I believe DLNR should be responsible for issuing one permit without the permission of the landowner, for allowing one hunting guide to do it blatantly. So I'm going to move on to the next department panel if nobody else has any questions. If we-
Senator,
Sure, go
may
ahead.
we request the impact statement?
Yes. Yes.
This is Dustin Griffith.
Please, Senator, come on. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I have the honor of speaking on behalf of the Pia family. For those of you that are not aware, my neighbor and good friend, Cranston Pia, lost his life. He lost his life defending his cattle and his ranch. I have a message here from his wife that I'd like to read. My husband, Cranston Duke Pia, was loving and devoted husband and father. His whole life was dedicated to God, his family, and his business. He grew up on the ranch at a young age. He was always destined to be a cowboy. While life took him down different paths, he always ended up back on the ranch. When he was presented with the opportunity to run the ranch, he saw it as his calling from God and put all of his time and energy into it. His business name was Grazing Sevens, as a testament to his vision of what he had for his business. Grazing for cattle and other animals he raised, in the biblical number 7. He wanted his ranch to provide for the West Side community and to inspire people to support local. If you ever met my husband, you would have immediately loved him. He was just that type of man. He wouldn't judge, but understand. He was always willing to mentor anyone who asked. He was taken too young at 39 years old in a way that we as a family are still trying to process and understand. He was looking forward to the future improvements on the ranch, more products to offer to the community, and his daughter's upcoming graduation. All these things he will never see to fruition. Anyone who's ever met my husband will tell you, we lost the best man that there ever was, and there's a huge hole that'll never be filled. Our daughter lost her father at a young age, and I lost my soulmate. This entire tragedy happened due to several crimes. Trespassing was number one. I mean, first off, if they hadn't been there where they were supposed to be on private land, it never would have happened. Poaching was the next thing. These were illegal. These guys were hunting illegally, and hunting and trespassing in that area has just kind of become normal. It's kind of just not been a big deal. I mean, we called to get help, and the police come out and they look at us. They're just trespassers. They're just hunters. I promise you, it's a big deal to me now, and I guarantee you, it's a big deal to the Pia family. One of Cranston's big deals was supporting local. He took great pride in the fact that he took his products to the Wai'i farmers market and sold it to the local community. The West Side community was big to him. I mean, it meant a lot to him. What we're asking you to do today is support your local ranchers and farmers. We're needing help. It's obvious we need help. So that's the message I have to deliver from myself and the family. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dustin, and of course, we want to extend our condolences to the family.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for the impact statement.
I will pass that along.
Mahalo. So I want to move on. Sir,
Chair, I'm curious, if you said area,
Sir-
hunting
sir-
area D,
Sir, hang on. We're not going to take questions from the crowd. We have a program here.
but
So,
if that hunting area D, they're saying it,
so, hang on, sir. I want to move on with the next panel. The Hawaii Department of Agriculture, Department of Land and Natural Resources, and ADC. In that order, Sharon, if you come forward, I want you guys to think about, please identify your top 3 to 5 issues and concerns regarding agriculture-related crimes, and share any roadblocks and solutions you are either working on or have plans and goals for.
Working, okay. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chairs, members of the committee, Sharon Hurd, Department of Agriculture. The top 3 things. First of all, the information, the data is very important to justify, excuse me, I'm still recovering. Okay. So we have, I brought 20 copies of the surveys that were referred to earlier. They're the 2019 Ag Theft Survey and the 2004. I have copies up there, 20, please help yourself. It's drilled down to the county level. So the counties that are here, you can take a look. In addition, so the surveys are very important, but in addition, the top thing is to have a process. We need a process. The process that we have in place, I have copies of this as well. We are a very law-abiding group of people, all of us. But with ag theft, it is really difficult to get the evidence that you need. We did our best to make a form to report your crime if you're a victim of ag theft, but the onus is all on the victim. It seems that in order to do a report, you have to establish proof of ownership, that this was actually your product that was stolen, and then you have to prove movement certificate. You have to show that this product is not only my product, but this is how I moved it from my farm to the retailer or to the distributor. And that's your proof that you moved it. What does the thief do? The thief steals it, takes it to the farmer's market, and sells it. And so somebody goes up to him and says, where's your proof of ownership and movement certificate? Oh, I didn't, it's mine, I own it. I don't need to show proof. So I guess the reason I produced this is I just wanted you to bear with me. What is required, we have to change it. We have to change the process. We have to make it easier for the victim to report a crime. I like what Brian said in the language that they speak. What is required on the ownership and movement certificate? Okay. bear with me, this is what you need today if you're going to report an ag crime. You need an invoice, receipt, bill of lading, or similar document that can serve the purpose of the certificate, provided that it contains the following information: the name, resident address, and telephone number of the seller, and the license plate number of the vehicle used to deliver the agricultural commodity to the buyer. The name of the farm owner and address of origin, the name of the buyer and consignee and destination, signature of the seller, and upon sale, the signature of the buyer or consignee. Then you have to have a movement certificate. It's no wonder that crimes are not reported. This is crazy, right? I have my colleague, Director Lowe, in the audience, and he and I have spoken. We need something like just evidence. This is my farm. I have a picture of somebody stealing. Go get them. And Director Lowe is very open to doing that. And we're very fortunate that the Department of Law Enforcement is willing to step up and provide us investigators on every island. I hope I'm not stealing his thunder, but he did say earlier when we had a conversation that that aligns with his long-term strategy, is to have representation. Oh, thank you. On every island. Okay, so that was number one, surveys. The survey information, the data is important because we have the farmers here. But the county level, Senator Richards. Hawaii County, of that survey in 2019, Hawaii County represents 67% of the losses, 9.6 million. Whew, it's a lot. Of all the commodities that suffered, the highest expenditure was reported by the livestock industry. And livestock includes cattle, poultry, aquaculture, bee and honey, and other livestock. They reported the largest expenditure of 3.8 million for security systems. That's how much they spent on security, guards and fencing barriers. But despite those efforts, livestock reported 392 incidents of theft and losses of $530,000, with machinery equipment losses reported at 279,000. And this is grossly underreported. We know that. So the other thing that we have is this bill. We want to establish, besides making the process easier, we want to make more staffing available on the law enforcement side. We don't want to do enforcement. We're not, we want to depend on the Department of Law Enforcement to do our arm, to do that part of it. So that's the next thing. That's what we're working on now.
Okay, so Sharon, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna let law enforcement tell
Yeah.
us, if you can wrap yours up,
Yeah,
because I don't like burning to the other
Yeah, so
panel, as
the
well as
surveys-
ADC as well.
Surveys, process, just coincidentally, I had asked the NAS, the National Agricultural Statistics Service, how much it would cost to do another survey, county level, deep granular data.
As long as they
85.
can break it out for us by state and county, because normally when it comes down, it's just lump sum into
Oh, no,
Hawaii,
no,
so that
no.
way we can
The
pinpoint.
agricultural theft in 2014 was by county, by size of ranches, so $85,000, okay?
Thank you. Okay, next up, DLNR, and then standing by ADC, please. Oh, hang on, I'm sorry, questions from the panel? Senator Gabbard.
Yes, Chair.
Yep.
What is the status of brand inspection now? Cattlemen's Council mentioned the brand inspection. What's the status and what resources do you need to get it to a place where it's most effective?
Well, I can tell you that we have a brand book, so we know all the, there's so many brands, okay? We don't have anyone that's out there checking brands. Our animal industry division is they're doing diseases, they're doing, keeping us safe from that. I don't believe anyone's doing, no one's doing branding.
Thank you.
Senator Richards.
Yeah, a quick comment on that, Senator Gabbard. Just by de facto, usually when we're writing health certificates as veterinarians, we're expecting the brand, but we don't have enforcement. You go to a state like Texas, they fear the brand inspector more than they fear other law enforcement, even the highway patrol or whatever. So it's a seriously missing thing in our state.
Sharon, if you can come back.
Better.
Sharon, have you ever introduced or looked towards legislation on the branding enforcement?
There was one last year.
What happened to that, though?
I don't remember, but Nicole and I talked about this earlier, and she's saying that branding in Hawaii is a little bit cooperative, that sometimes you swap cattle.
No, well, if you are exchanging, if you are exchanging cattle, you need to have the bill of sale. But right now, there is no brand inspector to enforce the rules of making sure that bill of sale lines up with what brand is on that cattle right there. So there's different points throughout, selling, bringing it to the harvest facility, where the brand inspector does check it. So if you have stolen cattle, if there's a brand inspector, you're going to be in trouble. So that's what we're looking for, is the enforcement.
And there is none right now.
What is the penalties for the fines in Texas for violating the brand? I think that could pay for the inspector.
You're right.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
we'll look into it.
Sure, hang on, Senator Gabbard.
Chair Hurd, who's hurt most by ag theft in terms of the roughly 7,000 farms that?
What a great question. That was in the testimony that we provided. The biggest is the small farmer that reports less than $25,000 a year. That farmer was 67% of the losses. And how can you, if you make less than 50,000 a year and you're suffering 67% of the losses, are you going to come back? I don't know. But also a new farmer that doesn't have the security system up and the fences. One sweet potato farmer on Kauai reported that he went back out to his farm. He was so happy to go harvest. Every sweet potato was dug up. This whole field was stolen. He gave up. So it's big on this. The impact on the small farmer is way bigger than it would be on, a large operation. So, thank you. Good question.
Thank you.
Sharon, hang on. You know how hard it is to dig up sweet potato?
They probably had a machine. Whew.
I mean, I got an easier time stealing tomatoes and cattle, but I think that was but I just want to make this really clear. I think a theft is a theft, whether they're small, big, or they're new farmers. I think the point, what they're trying to make is that while everybody has invested in their farms and ranches at whatever level it is, even if it's a big ranch, they get bigger equipment, they get vast amount of land and the amount of fence line that they can take out or, So I just wanted to make that comment, that we need to consider that all of it is impactful. So, thank you.
Chair, just,
Sure, Senator Favela.
the problem I have, with the departments and with law enforcement, the thing is, I understand we have these so-called laws in place here. But the only people that he's hurting is the ranchers and the farmers. And the only people that can protect their own is them. Like all these laws and restrictions, and put them in jail for doing and protecting their own aina and their own cattle and their own farm. You cannot do this in any other country, but we can do that here. I like to know what we can do to empower them, not what we're going to do and try to get law enforcement or people patrolling. How are we going to empower the cattleman and the farmer? That's the kind of laws we should be making here.
I agree.
To have them protect their own.
Right.
And then when they do protect it, we don't prosecute them.
It's kind of like the evidence question, you have to catch somebody lighting a piece of, a firecracker in order to charge them. You have to actually be involved in a drug deal in order to do that. With a piece of fruit, it's really hard. The tropical fruit growers, they want to get a special pencil and mark every fruit, and then you can only see with a light, so that when they go to the farmer's market. So what I'm trying to answer your question with is, it's evidence. That's how they have to make their point.
No, but the evidence I'm talking about is they're on my property. I just broke their 2 legs. So that's the evidence. They trespass.
So Senator Favela, we're going to get to that when we bring
sorry.
law enforcement on. We get into that. No cure the ag director yet. Thank you.
By the way, he's up for hire.
Yeah, he's up for hire, for free. Senator Richards. Okay, next up, Department of Land and Natural Resources, Brian. Thank you. And then, we can sum it up. I know people got flights to catch and stuff, but if we can sum up the presentation.
Yeah, for sure. Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committees. Ryan Kanakaole, Deputy Department of Land and Natural Resources. So for the purpose of this panel, when it comes down to DLNR's issue with agricultural related crimes, it really boils down to one thing, and that's limitations on DLNR's scope and jurisdiction, particularly when it comes to law enforcement. As you know, DLNR, we have a big kuleana. It's 1.3 million acres of land, state land, 3 million acres of state waters to enforce on. And with that, we have our divisions here, DOCARE, Forestry and Wildlife, and Land Division, because they share in that load. So I gotta make a distinction that there's between crimes that occur on private lands and crimes that occur on DLNR lands. So the lands that DLNR manages are public lands. And I have to emphasize that a lot of the agricultural crime that we've seen, that predominantly occurs on private properties that fall outside of DLNR's enforcement jurisdiction. So it's essentially on these private lands, depending on the land, if it's private land or public land, it depends on who's going to be responding, whether it be DLNR's DOCARE officers or the police departments. Criminal activity occurring on private property, that falls within the jurisdiction of the police departments, and they're going to come up after me. When it comes to criminal activity on DLNR land, whether the DLNR or DOCARE officers respond depends on whether that land or whether the primary responder depends on whether the land is encumbered, meaning it's leased or licensed out to a private party, or whether it is unencumbered, say like a state park or a forest reserve. When it's encumbered, when it's leased out, those lands are treated as under private, under the management and control of a private party. And typically in those situations, our county law enforcement, they're the primary responder. When it comes to unencumbered lands, the forest reserves, that type of thing, our DOCARE officers are the primary responders. As far as it goes, DOCARE is the police entity for the Department of Land and Natural Resources. But our authorizing statutes in HRS Chapter 199, it's very limited, and it specifically is outlined to enforce laws across state lands and waters, and that's state with a capital S, as in the government entity, not the whole Pai'aina. So our jurisdiction, it extends to DLNR public lands, state parks, aquatic and wildlife areas, and it's a very defined scope, and it kind of underscores DLNR's and DOCARE's focused mission to protecting the natural and cultural resources of our state. And it ensures that, our limited resources are concentrated on, those areas. And at the same time, we can coordinate with local law enforcement when it comes to handling other crimes on the private lands. However, I do want to emphasize that DOCARE does coordinate with local law enforcement. Particularly when the activities occur on private property, but it's, near our jurisdiction as well. Take for example, one example of just how enforcement goes on private versus public land is hunting laws. So DLNR, we have jurisdiction over hunting laws and rules. But DOCARE, we enforce on the public lands, like be it in the regulated hunting areas or in the where the public areas where hunting is not allowed, right? State parks, that type of thing. But when it comes to private lands, hunting is legal with the property owner's permission. And one of the bills that we're tracking and supporting is Senate Bill 2546, and that's the hunting guide bill that's been referenced already. We support the requirement for written authorization for hunting guides on private areas. But as far as the law stands now, illegal hunting occurring on private lands, it often is easier to enforce under the state's trespassing laws as well as the our firearms laws, because as the previous presenter said, it's an evidentiary issue. It's an intent, proving intent problem when it comes to prosecution of these types of crimes. Yeah, so that was just one example on the enforcement limitations, which is, like I said, if you have to boil it down to one thing relevant to this panel, that's what it is. It's our limitation of
Thank you.
jurisdiction.
Questions? Senator Richards.
Yeah, okay, so Deputy, to be clear on this, state lands that are being leased are considered private per your enforcement. So if you have areas that have been open for hunting that the state is checking people in and out, but it's private land, you have no jurisdiction over managing that? Is that what I'm hearing?
These are private areas that are open for hunting, so there are
Like
state,
for bird hunting?
yeah, so there are state lands that are under leased, and I think our land division can explain further if need, but there are state lands that are under lease where the conditions of the lease allow for hunting. And so in those situations, we consider it under private management and control.
So you don't have jurisdiction for law enforcement?
We are not the primary enforcement authority, so we rely on county PD for that.
But you're regulating the hunter coming in, but you're not regulating anything that may be going on the lands? You understand where I'm going with this?
I see what
Okay,
you're saying.
the disconnect.
Yeah.
Because I know private lands, privately owned lands that DLNR regulates coming in for hunting. But then what I'm hearing is that you have no jurisdiction over something is not being handled correctly. So, and I don't want to argue nuances on this one.
Yeah.
Because again, we are time limited, but if you have a comment, that'd be great.
Yeah, good afternoon, Senators. Jason Redula, Chief of DoCare. So to your point, Senator, when it comes to that type of check-in situation, with respect to private property, there are two main laws that DoCare would look for. One is hunting licenses. We would be able to inspect hunters for their hunting license. The second is the hunting prohibition at night. So if hunters are hunting at night on private property, there is a statute that prohibits that. These are statutes both in 183 HRS that come within the department's jurisdiction.
And I got that part, but what my point is, so you check the hunter in onto private land and you have poachers out there at the same time, but you have no jurisdiction to affect any solution there. Is that what I'm hearing? Because this sounds like jurisdictionally you are prohibited from doing that. Is that correct?
If it's private land, then our enforcement authority by law doesn't extend into those private lands.
Okay. Chair, I know we're time sensitive, but I think that's a big puka right there.
Senator Favela.
Yeah, in these types of things that you're talking about, hunting license and all this kind of stuff, how much did you guys actually enforce in the last few years? How much violations, and what was the violations range?
We do have hunting violations from time to time. I don't know what that number is off the top of my head, but predominantly for DoCare, fishing violations are probably top of the list, and then hunting violations after that, followed by violations regarding boating in state parks. With respect to the hunting violations, the most common is hunting without a license. And second to that would be unlawful methods of take. So if you're in a certain hunting unit, you don't have the right method of take, when we inspect you, you can be cited for those kinds of things.
And what is the consequences of not having one hunting license?
You'll be cited, it's I believe it's a petty misdemeanor. Subject to the determination of the court, but you could have a fine or limited jail time.
The reason why I'm asking that is because we were talking about enforcement. So how much current vacancies that DoCare have right now?
We're looking to fill 25 vacancies with the next recruit class.
And then just recently, I'm not sure if you got the answer. If you don't, you can give it back to the committee. One of you guys, believe one of you guys senior supervisors in Doe Care had resigned. Do you know any of the circumstances of what, of the resignation was for?
You know, I'm not aware of any senior supervisor that resigned. We do have officers who resign from time to time for various reasons.
Just a recent one.
That person, I believe, well, without going into the actual personnel
Yeah,
measures,
no,
I
of course
think he
not.
just
You
had
cannot,
to.
you cannot, then we
Yeah.
can just bypass that. I mean, that's fine. You know what I mean? Because the problem, that I understand this, Chair, but you see, we know that you guys protect state land. But what we like know from you guys, instead of just going from PEPA and the rules and the laws, we like know what you can do to help this committee and help these people to self-govern themselves, because I can stand on top of state land, check you off, okay? You know, you get hunting license, private property keep out, you come to the fence, they go, you check them off already, I mean, they're all G. But again, how is that helping them by you checking the license if they have or they haven't? Because like I said earlier, you know, back, sorry, okay. I'm Portuguese, sorry, forgive me. But the reason why I'm saying this is because when my grandfather used to ranch when I was a little boy, when they used to do all of that, nobody dare come on their property. They would get lickings, pass up, and the police would come, take them to jail. Now you're going patty cake, baker's man. Why do you think the crime going out of hand? We gotta stop babying the criminals and take care of the law-abiding citizens. That's the thing. So we like guidance from you guys. You guys know the law. I don't know the law. You know what I mean? That's why I like broke the legs and maybe like tell them they'll fall on my property. I don't know. You know, something like that. Try help us with that. I mean, I understand you guys' restrictions, but try if you can. I mean, not now, Chair, but later on to figure out how we can break legs.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
strike that comment, but, thank you, Senator Favela. So, you know, I want to go back to, which is why I think, you know, the bill on the hunting guides, why could it have never been done internally? Why did we need the bill? Because you guys put the fee up of the $25 to allow for it, and yet there was no buy-in by any of the landowners and ranchers to allow a commitment, in some cases, to have those hunting guides that, I know 4 of them right off the bat, that were caught hunting with a hunting guide that you guys issued. So why couldn't it have been done internally, that you folks would ask them right there, who do you have permission to be hunting with?
The 183D laws right now, I think that they're worded with allowing hunting with the authorization of the landowner. So I don't, as far as implementation side goes and the department's issuance of administrative rules, we would be, if we said you need written authorization only, which is what the bill does, right? It requires written authorization.
From the landowner
would be-
that the guide is on.
That would be the department limiting what the law provides. So I think,
Well, why saying this? I think you guys should limit it, because if they're caught on the landowner, then that means the state and DLR should be liable. You know what I mean? Because you guys basically gave them, after they gave you $25 for this hunting guide, that they have no permission, and they're flashing that ticket and saying, I want permit. This was given to me by the department. And I said, you no more permission for be on my land. What you doing here? Oh, but I got the guide. Okay, good, now I know who to sue first. I mean, we're at the point where we becoming now vigilante. Maybe I get a volunteer guy over there gonna go over there and break some legs, but you know, which is not a good thing. But you know, when an incident like this occurs, it's because there's not enough enforcement there. So I'm having a hard time understanding why you guys never do that internally versus us having to take matters into our own hands, or in this case, the ranchers having to defend property of those that have violated with the support of a permit that you guys issue without the permission of that landowner? And maybe you can answer that.
Yeah, I'll try to answer. So David Smith, Administrator, Division of Forestry and Wildlife. Those permits say specifically right on the permit that you have to have landowner permission. One of the things we got pushback was a lot of the landowners don't want to give written permission. So we were afraid that that was going to negatively.
But David, I think they're not giving them because they get people working on the land. And why would they let you come on there when they have that time? Because most of these ranchers, they let people go hunting.
Right,
And they don't even need a permit to go because they abide by the law
right.
and they follow these things. So why would we need that? I mean, why
They
would,
don't want to give the written permission.
and they shouldn't have to because maybe they have other people there
We
hunting
agree.
already.
We agree. And on those guided hunt permits, it says specifically that you have to have landowner's permission. So if the landowner is standing right there, calls the cops, say, hey, these guys are trespassing, the cop shows up, they flash, hey, I get a permit. All they gotta do is read the permit and says, hey, you gotta have landowner's permission. This guy's telling me you don't have permission.
No, what I'm saying is the permission should be only given after the landowner gave them permission. So what I'm saying is, why are you giving the permit if the landowner never give them the written permission? So when they are caught there, they now pay that fine that I think should be set at maybe $10,000, because if, you know, you can broke fences and tractors and shoot horses, that somebody gotta pay for
But we're
them.
not
Should that be
paying-
liable of the state?
We're not giving them permission to hunt on particular parcels, only to be a commercial.
I think you're missing the whole point here. It's about having the permission from the landowner prior to giving the permit.
Right. I mean, we could do that. We could institute where if we give a permit, you have to have, it could pertain only to particular parcels. We don't do that right now.
If you do them on your land, that's fine.
Yeah.
Hang on, sir. If you
No,
stop.
I don't,
But if you do it on your land, it's fine that you guys giving them written permission to
Right.
go on state
Yeah, yeah,
land.
yeah.
But if they're using that permit to be on somebody else's land that they get caught, they should be nailed for that.
Oh, yeah, we totally agree. We don't support that at all.
But what I said is, why didn't you guys do that internally? You guys could have easily made that adjustment within your own rules.
We can make that adjustment if that's a suggestion, and that's a good suggestion, I think. To change the permit to, it's just changing the nature of the permit. Right now, it's kind of an open-ended permit. Hey, if you got a landowner permission, you can go. But if that's creating a
David,
problem,
for
then we can say-
$25, you guys issuing this like pancakes?
Right, well, we're not charging a lot to give the permit.
Well, that's
but
what
we're
I'm
not
saying. You're not
authorizing you
charging
to-
a lot to give the permit,
We're
like,
not authorizing you to hunt on a particular piece of land. So if the suggestion is, why don't you only give permits to hunt on a particular piece of land, that is a potential solution, yes.
So if this is if this type of change is done in our administrative rules, we're gonna have to go through the public process, and as David pointed out, the landowners are hesitant on giving this type of written permission because that's essentially what would be happening, right? They would have to give
So
the written
Ryan, you're not hearing
permission
me.
ahead of time.
so you're not hearing me. So if the landowner not gonna give them permission, no, give them the permit,
Roger.
period. Okay,
That's fair enough.
okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah,
And if
Chair,
you're giving,
Senator Richards.
yeah, real quick, remember why we are here, what has brought us to this. I'm hearing arguments about procedural policy and all that. We lost a rancher. That's what has brought this group together. And I don't want to hear, oh, maybe this policy, if we can adjust this policy with it. The Pia family is mourning the loss of a rancher and a rancher community. So I want to hear, not no can, I want to hear how can. And that's
Amen.
the pressure right now. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, ADC.
So, I'm sorry, I have a
I'm
question.
sorry, Senator Rhodes.
Yeah, for the two there that you will come back. So currently you issue a hunting permit, it's a blanket hunting permit for a certain time period, right?
You get a hunting license, and under that hunting license, you can take game.
So how are the hunters going to react to just saying, okay, if you just specify a particular piece of land? I don't know how they do it in other states. Do they specify land in other states?
No, I think what Senator is referring to is a permit to be a commercial hunting guide and to be able to take people out and guide them. And what these guys are doing, what some of these folks are doing, a few bad actors, I don't know of any specific instances, but they go
Okay,
on,
so
they trespass, and then they say, hey, I got a permit, but that's not what the permit says.
Right, no, I understand that the permit doesn't give them permission to trespass,
Right.
But, okay, so other than the guides, the licenses are the same though, right?
No, they have to have their own, you have to have a hunting license regardless.
For each individual who's hunting.
And then if you're a hunting guide, that's what we're talking about here, is if you have a hunting guide, it says you can guide people commercially,
Okay.
but it doesn't say you can just go.
I'm just wondering if you switch the policy to say you have to have permission. I mean, for the hunting guides, it makes perfect sense, but just for your regular hunters,
Regular hunt is just gonna be a regular standard hunting license.
it would just be anywhere, you just have to have permission to, you
Anywhere
have
with
to get permission
Anywhere with
yourself.
landowner's permission.
Right, okay, I got you. All right, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, next up, ADC, please.
Mark Takemoto, Agribusiness Development Corporation. And for purposes of time, if it's okay, senators, we just sort of summarize real quick. Okay. So what I'm hearing for us, and I've worked on farms like Dole, Pioneer, on Kauai, right, Oahu, and even some work on Molokai. And really what we would end up doing, there's theft, there's vandalism, we hear that, we know these things. Really what it comes down for us is that trespass, right? You know when you're not supposed to be on the property. I mean, if I go and sit in any of your offices and you walk in the door and I'm sitting there at your desk, it's not obvious, right? I'm not supposed to be there. And yet this keeps happening, right? It keeps happening. I go out, for the most part, every Saturday, work with the homeless out in some of the farm areas to try to work with these guys and work with HPD, and they're great. HPD has been wonderful, but really when you think about it, there's not much they can do. They can trespass them, they can arrest them, and generally by that afternoon, they might be back. So really for me, it's trespass, because and I've encountered hunters or poachers, I never made that distinction. It was a good educational moment for me, listening to these people. But, when we're into a hunter and he's carrying a weapon, I don't know if he's hunting or not. He's not firing at anything, but he's walking along, but he's trespassing. He's definitely not on property that we allowed him to be on. So for me, one of the easiest ways would be, whether they're walking on, they don't generally hunt, or we don't get that kind of thing on a farm, right? Because there's generally no hunting in an open field. There's nothing to hunt. We do get people hiking. We get, these are in some of the hiking guides, right? Go and hike over here, and they're hiking. We get people riding dirt bikes, ATVs.
So Mark, if you can help us, you've been through farming and all this, what is your solution? I try to find something that is consistent with everybody, so we can actually come to a consensus of how we address this by law, by finding the individual. So what is your solution?
For us, if we call law enforcement and we have them there, and nothing generally happens, and I'm not knocking law enforcement, I know it's hard. But if the trespass law was significant enough, where it meant something, where you're not supposed to be there, then you don't have to prove that's my tomato, that's my sweet potato. You killed that animal on my property, your dog killed my animal. You're not supposed to be there. So why are you there, right? How many times could I sit at your desk in your office or in your garage, right, before it would be a real problem? And it's like that for farmers, where they don't. I know it's underreported. I know it is, because they'll call us days after somebody did this, and we're like, oh, did you report it? And we're working with our farmers to tell them the more you report, the more resources go your way. So it's important to report every time, right? But they're at the point where, it's waste my time.
So Mark, I think like a lot of it is, most of them no report because of the retaliation.
That is part of it.
So what's your recommendation?
If we increase the fine, so it's significant enough where it hurts, right? Right now, it doesn't, it's like $50. I don't know what it is, really. I don't even know if there is a fine.
What's your recommendation?
The number? Oh, you're asking for a number.
I gotta pay for enforcement. If I gotta pay for enforcement, I
That
don't
is
know
true.
what's the number.
Okay, and that, that is true. Yeah, it would have to be something where, well, okay, what's a DUI, what's similar? Something that would make a difference, because, or it could, you could make it $50.
DUI's fines doesn't make a difference because they're still doing them. We need something that will stop the theft on ag and farmland. Because you represent, sorry, Chair, you represent that, you talked about the garage.
Right.
You sit in my garage without permission, I'm gonna jack you.
That's right.
That's it. Drag you off my property and jack you. Problem right now is our ranchers and our farmers, that's their family. Their cattle.
I agree.
Their fruits and vegetable, that's their ohana. Right? You be in my garage, you threatening my ohana, I'm gonna beat you up. But their hands are tied.
Okay.
So that's why we like, no, that's
Yeah.
what they like, no.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't,
You know what?
I'm not sure, but
Well,
that's a good number.
I'll put a tag
to
on
think.
it for you.
Yeah, I
Okay,
will go look
thank you.
something up and I will get back to you, Senator.
you.
Okay.
Anybody, any other question? Any other questions from the committee?
No?
Okay, seeing none, I'm gonna move on to the next, panel. If I can have law enforcement office, Jordan, guys, Brandon, if you can, please. So thank you guys for joining us. I'd like to, on an ag-related crime, if it's reported 911 call or in-person complaint, how do you handle it? Just something to think about. How do you handle it from start to finish? Share any roadblocks and solutions you are either working on, and do you track ag-related crimes / reports separate from other crimes, and do you have those numbers, whether it be you guys as law enforcement, and then I know we do have the police departments that are on Zoom as well, and I've kind of lumped you guys all in one panel, but if you can kind of share with us, Jordan.
Sure, Senator.
Thank you.
At this time, the Department of Law Enforcement does not respond to agricultural crimes, and we do not keep statistics on that. As Chair Hurd said, we've had conversations and we are willing to respond if given the resources. We will be willing to send our detectives out there in conjunction or in coordination with the county police department to investigate those crimes. One of the things that we are doing in developing the Department of Law Enforcement is we're leveraging technology. So we have a process to do the crime analysis, if you would like us to do that. The other thing that we can do is we're actually in the process of creating various anonymous tip lines for different crimes, such as bullying, the fireworks, and we can add ag theft or agricultural crimes in that, where it can be reported online. And what we plan to do with that is that will be monitored 24/7 from one of our contractors. So that is something that we're willing to add. And then in terms of the private security systems that they have, we do have a solution, and we're willing to work with the farmers and ranchers to integrate that in our system with our real-time crime center that we're developing.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Quick question, Chair.
Senator Richards.
Do you have jurisdiction to enforce law on private and public lands?
Yes, we do. So the Department of Law Enforcement has the same authority as police officers.
Okay, so, and it doesn't matter, private or public?
Correct.
Correct. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so Jordan, I guess you and Chair Hurd had a conversation. How effective is your technology with drones? And would we be able to use the drones if, say the ranch is 1,000 acres? You guys have overlay footage that could be used to, I guess, implicate the trespasser
So,
in that aspect?
so that technology is available. We're aware of it. Brandon can probably go into it a little bit further if you would like more details on it. We have not really entertained that due to the costs. You know, we started looking at a small drone program, you know, really just for our special operations section, but that is something that is possible. When Brandon and I visited the Las Vegas Metro Crime Center, they deployed drones based on AI. So in other words, they tied it to what they call ShotSpotter, or another solution. When a firearm is discharged, the drone would launch to that location, and then they would hand it over to an operator to follow the suspect to effect
You
the
know that
arrest.
AI technology that you're talking about? So say if I have that existing technology on my ranch, or any of the ranchers do, how quick and fast are you able to tap into that footage to then use the AI to either catch the suspect so that the penalties of the trespass or the violation can be done?
So the problem, you can use the AI and the drones to collect evidence, okay? So, you know, based on the technology, you can probably catch the person there, gather footage, you know, but in terms of actually catching them, it will require, you know, officers or detectives or deputies nearby to actually effect that arrest. And that's the part that will be problematic. You know, we don't have the staffing to do that. Most of our investigative services would be reactive. You know, we would take that information and then and try to perfect a criminal case so we can present to the prosecutors or the AG's office.
Sorry, Senator Gabbard.
So you said the cost is prohibitive. Are there any local companies that are doing that? They're doing what you're talking about with drones and AI, or dealing with mainland?
They're mainly mainland companies, yeah,
Okay. No local ones exist now.
correct. And really what I think when from what I'm hearing today, you know, everybody talks about it's just trespassing. It's really not just trespassing. We would take it further. You know, if the individual, you know, was on private property and he was trespassing and he had a firearm, we would check to see whether the firearm was registered. If it's not registered, you know, then there's a different violation. You know, is there a place to keep violation? We would look at all of that as opposed to just giving him a citation. I mean, if we could arrest him, we would arrest him.
Oh, thank you for that. So your jurisdiction, of course, it's working in partnership, right, with, say, DoCare or the police department. In this case, if the individual had, I don't know, maybe 10 cows shot, and you guys had the footage of that 10 cow shot, and the individual that possesses the firearm, I would think at that point, the stacking of violations would ensue, at some point, the fines. You guys have an idea of that level of fines that, and more time, it's basically to recruit. In this case, we're not able to recoup life, which is why we're having this conversation, is the stiffer the fines, the better the deterrence to come on the, do you guys have that kind of thought process on the violation occurrence on the possession? And I'm sure once you get the serial numbers, either the gun belonged to the person or it didn't, and then those violations become higher.
Right, but in terms of the poaching and the killing of livestock, we do not have that information, but we can look into it and provide you that information at a later date.
I think some of the ranchers can help you with that. Okay, thank you. Senator Pavella.
Thank you. So let's say right now, the ranchers have footage. You see the person, see the vehicle, see the crime. Can you guys make an arrest?
We would take that information, and if it's referred to us, we will conduct an investigation to see what violation there is. And if we can perfect that case and the prosecutors or the state attorney general's office is willing to prosecute that case, we would make an arrest.
The only reason why I bring this up is because previous to videotaping and camera, they said that you have to catch them in the act, right? So now I know on the city side, they had changed with the camera evidence, because in my community, a person got beat up and there was more than enough video of the individual children that did the assault. And even though it was months later, they still got arrested for the crime. This is the reason why I bring this up. And if we need to do something here legislatively to empower you a little bit more to prosecute these kinds of crimes, because the part is, if we don't start raising the fines, consequences, it's going to continue, like confiscating their vehicle, taking away their gun, right? High fine. To get it back, you got to pay the fine, all these kind of things. Either than that, it's not going to happen. So that's what we want guidance from you guys to give our chair and everybody else an input on how we can, I don't like create new laws. I like make laws that work, because we have plenty of laws that not enforced. But we like to have something that would be feasible, that will work for this industry. I'm not talking about everybody else in the world. I'm just talking about the ranchers and farmers, to give them some sense of relief. And that's what maybe later on you can, because I had introduced a bill for ShotSpotter, and it didn't go anywhere. Nobody understood the technology at the time. And like Senator Wakai said, that was before everybody's time, but at least the technology is coming back. Yeah, I mean, it's here. Because the one that I was bringing them in was not only for the fireworks, is when HPD is out in the field and the radio don't work, and they gotta go to the car to call in, was safety for them. And what happens is it gives an exact place and address to the person. So if a firecracker blows in Ever Beach, the police don't even go there. They just send a fine straight to the house, that the owner and the person renting there to fight the fine. So those are the things that I think maybe we should start looking more into, to start protecting them. Because if you take away the vehicle, you take away the tractor, like you said for the sweet potato, they're not gonna be able to steal anymore. Because you guys won't confiscate, not you guys, in general.
Thank you, Senator
Thank you, sir.
Rivera. Okay, Senator Richards.
No.
Okay, moving on, thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on, we do have the county police departments that are also online. We have from Hawaii County, Jeremy Evangelista, Acting Major Area 2, Hawaii County Police Department, Area 2 Operations Division on Zoom. William Durr, Police Lieutenant, Community Policing Section, also on Zoom. Kauai PD, Acting Assistant Chief, Kauai Police Department. On Molokai, Captain Jamie Winfrey. On Zoom, Honolulu PD Captain Brandon Yamamoto, and Assistant Chief Mark Thompson on Zoom, as well as Detective Gordon Sagan at MPD Maui, also on Zoom. So I want to do the last panel with the Office of Attorney General, if you would please come up. And if you can come, yeah, thank you. And thank you for joining us. So with you guys, if we can kind of consider an ag crime related case comes to you for prosecution, one is how would you handle it from start to finish? What are the level of charges? Can they be expedited? How do you prosecute? And do you track ag related cases separate from other cases? And if you have the numbers? Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. You can ask me again for the question.
Well, and I can't answer a bunch of those questions. What I can tell you, though, is there is a new relationship with the Attorney General's office and the state law enforcement, including DoCare. And we are working actively right now to be able to integrate, particularly DoCare and our prosecutors' ability to prosecute. And some of that is truthfully education for all of us, because our prosecutors haven't done prosecution for things that DoCare cites for, like hunting or fishing and that kind of thing. So I want to say first and foremost that I'm learning a lot, and our two departments are working close together along with DLE, because it is a new structure and we do need to find better ways to work together. There are, and Lance, do you want to go ahead and come on up? Lance is the supervising deputy attorney general for our criminal justice division, and he can speak more clearly with respect to trespass and crimes and so forth.
Thank you.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry, what is your question then?
So basically, we want you to speak to the level of trespassing and prosecution. What are the level of charges? How you guys handle the case from start to finish? Can these be expedited? And the prosecution part of it, as well as the tracking of ag-related cases separate from other cases.
Well,
Could you state your name, please?
Yeah.
For the record?
oh, my name is Lance Goto. I'm the supervisor for the Criminal Justice Division at the Attorney General's office. I think the first thing to say is, as far as the types of crimes or cases that you guys have been discussing, they're not the types of cases that generally we would get or prosecute. We would deal more with cases that might arise on state property. For private property crimes, it's going to be the county police that are going to be the primary responders.
I'm going to jump in because, as Senator Richard says, they don't want to hear what we can't do, they want to hear what we can do.
That's right.
And what we can do, again, as I said, I think with Jordan and Chief Radula, there you go. We do have a new state law enforcement relationship amongst ourselves. And it is something that just started January 1st. And so we're all learning and developing. And I do think that we may see some more of those kinds of crimes cross our desk. Certainly, we can work with DoCare, I think, on some of the questions you were asking about hunting license and that sort of thing. What can we do differently? I frankly don't know, because this is a new subject for me, and I'll just be candid about that. But that doesn't mean we can't spend time taking a look at it. So, Lance, with respect to the crimes, what I understand is that just plain trespass on ag land is a petty misdemeanor.
Yes,
And that is subject to up to a $1,000 fine. Is that right?
yeah, so we're talking about, there are specific provisions in our criminal trespass 2 laws, which is a petty misdemeanor that address trespass on agricultural lands under certain circumstances. And so petty misdemeanor is, the maximum is 30 days incarceration and up to $1,000 fine.
So it sounds like from today's hearing, nobody has ever gotten a fine beyond the cost of a $28 lock. And certainly no time in prison. They've gotten community service. So, Senator Favela, when you're talking about not just wanting to pass laws, but let's have laws that work, certainly the judges play a huge role in what actually happens. But again, and I don't want to pretend like I'm an expert on this stuff, okay? Because I'm not, clearly. But that doesn't mean we can't, as a group, reassess how assertive or maybe aggressive we are when these things come up, so that we are pushing harder for something that is within the petty misdemeanor realm, which would be a $1,000 fine or up to 30 days in jail. I think that people like Lance and other law enforcement people here might be thinking that I'm naive, and Lance was, I never think that, Ann. But we clearly have work to do. And so I think we can, as a group, start learning and working. But that's not all your questions, I don't think.
That's most of the questions I think you've answered. I think the idea, the walkaway we're trying to get is, can there be collaborative effort that we come back with something strong enough that will address the problems that we've been through? Or so this instance, this issue that just happened, because we don't want it to ever happen again. You know, as openly as we've been as ranchers and farmers, you know, and trying to protect your livelihood, you got kids there, you got family there that are also being jeopardized. So I appreciate the collaborativeness. I've had a really good time working with Jordan guys, understanding their division.
Right.
But what is the resources that we can put together to allow for stiffer fines to detract, not to allow it to continue. But I know that Senator Richards has a question.
It's just really quick, Senator. I was looking, because there was the report done in 2020 after a similar pilot program that SB 2363 is modeled after, and that does have some recommendations in it as well, and I don't know to what extent anybody pursued those, and that is something we'll look at. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Senator.
I appreciate it, Chair, and thank you. To the point, AG, I appreciate the fact you said I'm not an expert, but I'm pushing hard on this. First question, have you looked in other jurisdictions? Because Hawaii is not the first place agricultural crimes has happened. And areas, I made the comment earlier, people in Texas would far rather deal with the Texas Ranger than they do the brand inspector. The point is, we have long just sort of laughed at agricultural crimes and say, what's a big deal? What's a big deal? The problem is, we have a very big deal now. It's been highlighted by the Pia family. And so we need to do something aggressive and truly discourage. Senator Favela pointed out, take it all away. Take the things that were used for crimes, seize them, and make it hurt, because the problem is our farmers and ranchers are hurting. Years ago, I was dealing with a situation on Big Island. Someone came in and stole all the metal fence posts on a fence line. Everybody laughs and smiles about that, okay? This was on a highway. The rancher puts the cattle in, the fence goes down, because from the distance it was standing up. The fence goes down, gets on the highway, and someone's killed. Who's liable? Not the rancher. The rancher did what they were supposed to be doing. So we have situations like that that come forth, and if we don't give this the true seriousness that it should. I had another rancher, a cowboy, came in, he seized 3 guys that were illegally hunting, poaching, crossed at least 3 ranches to get there. He caught them. One guy came at him, he slapped him. They arrested the 3 guys. The 3 guys got their wrists slapped, given back their weapons, their ATVs, and the cowboy got terroristic charges filed against him, and we had to defend him. And so do we change the laws? You're the Attorney General. We're relying on you. Do we change the laws for the stiffer penalty? I agree with you, it has to get through the judiciary. But we're here today because of something very tragic happened. And this didn't just happen. This has been a building situation of the lack of true seriousness we should treat these crimes in agriculture with. And so asking, as the Attorney General, what's the direction? And Grant, I'll give you a whole pass on the fact you still got to look at other jurisdictions. I understand that and I appreciate that. But where do we go?
Well, certainly, I think we should look at other jurisdictions, but as you're talking and as I learned about the tragedy, as we talked about earlier this week and last week, I'm also very aware that I was out on the west side with Senator Favela and the police officers who are here today, talking about crime on the west side generally, not just agriculture. And the 2020 Ag Report that had the similar pilot project emphasized the need for community participation and education. And I don't think that's any different for when we're talking about children and violence and the agricultural crime. And I don't mean to belittle it or anything like that. I just want you to hear me saying that that report talked about the importance of a community movement to recognize that what you're talking about is serious. And it isn't just some, whatever they're doing kind of thing. So I think there's lots of things we need to do. And I am going to say that the west side has been beset by horrible violence over the last year. And this is an area where I think all of us, so I don't know the answer, but I think all of us do need to think seriously about some of these things.
So how do we come together and chair? Sorry, get a little passionate about this because the community, the ag community is tired of this. And as Senator Fidela pointed out, the ag community will take care of it if we don't stand up. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So, sorry, Chair.
No, thank you, Senator.
Let me just say,
Senator Gabbard.
please don't create a task force to do this. I promise that we will work
Pinky
together,
promise.
pinky promise, Senator, to do this.
So we might end up having one train station. Senator Gabbard.
I think, AG, what, a couple of places we could start, I'm not saying they're the best, but in terms of on the continent, in Florida, they have an established Ag Crimes Intelligence Unit as part of what they do there. And then also in Tennessee, they have an Ag Crime Division, which consists of commission officers who enforce the state laws and with regulations related to ag, forestry, animal health, and agribusiness. So maybe we could start there as we do our homework on this to address the issue.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to the police department. I know I have you guys all on Zoom, and then how about we start first with Hawaii County PD? IT, can you give them, unmute them, or if they can unmute themselves, and then we'll just go right down the list if you guys can share. Thank you.
Aloha committee, everybody in attendance. This is Jeremy Evangelista, Acting Major, Area 2, Hawaii County Police Department. I know you had questions that you gave us beforehand. Do you still want us to go through that, Chair?
Yes, if you can, please.
All right, so your question, how is an agriculture crime-related report handled? So it would start with someone reporting it to our dispatch center. We'll send somebody to meet with the complainant and gather facts, investigate the scene and try and collect any evidence, physical, photographic, or otherwise. Try to contact potential witnesses, try to identify a suspect. We also might follow up to determine if the stolen goods made it into the marketplace, depending on how well we can identify those goods. Once we complete the investigation, if a suspect has been identified, we can either arrest them if probable cause exists, or we can refer the case to the prosecutor's office for prosecution. Some of the roadblocks that we encounter with ag-related crimes have been mentioned by a lot of people that have already come in front of the committee. Underreporting is definitely an obstacle, lack of physical evidence, lack of witnesses, and the inability to conclusively identify the stolen property or the stolen property. So in the past, we have acquired some tools to try and help people with investigations when we've identified hotspots. We encourage the community in some of the solutions we try, or we encourage the community to report crimes and offer them advice on how to better secure their property and gather evidence in the event of a crime happening. We also encourage them to keep producible records that show the ownership of their property. That's needed for prosecution. And then your question, do we track ag-related crimes separate from other crimes? We can. It does require manual searching with our records management system though, because the ag theft, for example, is also included in the theft statutes. It's not a standalone statute. So it would require manual searching of our database in order to identify those ag theft cases. Do I have numbers prepared for you? No, I don't, because I couldn't screen all of the cases. So apologies for that. Lieutenant Durr, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, thank you. The only thing I had to add was on the positive note that we've been doing here in Hawaii County is we've developed a online fillable PDF form where farmers can download it, fill it out to overcome some of the obstacles. They can either drop it off at the closest police station, or they can call our dispatch, have an officer go to the location, pick it up. But this helps eliminate the time delay and stuff, because oftentimes it may take an hour or two or more, depending on our calls for service, for an officer even to show up at the ranch. So this helps mitigate that. And we worked closely with our prosecutor's office and the Mayor's Office of Research and Development to make sure included on that form was everything that would be needed for a successful prosecution. So we have that implemented, and every officer knows about this form, knows the procedures through our internal email service. We extended it out to all the officers. And then the last thing, one of the obstacles we had was weighing produce. That was an issue because we had to use a certified scale so that we know it's accurate and that kind of thing. And at the beginning of this week, I'm happy to say we received 3 that were donated to us that are certifiable, and they'll be distributed, one at the Kona main station, one in Waimea main station, and then at the Hilo main station. And unfortunately, to say, the day that we got them, we had to utilize them because we had fruit stolen. But it was nice because we got to utilize that, and that's one less obstacle we're going to be faced when it comes to prosecution. And then the last thing I'll say is the major was explaining that we have not really any specific statutes regarding theft, so we have to tease out and look at all the theft complaints to see if it was agriculturally related, with the exception of we do have a special section called theft of livestock. That's very easy to research, and I got an email from our records section, actually why this meeting was going on. And in 2022, there were 9 incidents of theft of livestock, 2023, 4. And so far this year, we've had 2 incidents as far as theft of livestock. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, if from Kauai, we have Acting Assistant Chief Applegate. And if you have something different from what the Big Island has, or you can elaborate and share with us, if you're not doing if there's an overlap, what you don't overlap, if you could share with us what you do in your county.
Yeah, absolutely, Senator. Good afternoon, everyone. On Kauai, I think that there's 2 areas that you're gonna see a common theme is the underreporting, and also the reluctancy of victims to come forward to report. And just like the Big Island, we have a similar system. We have an online reporting system to make it easier, so the victims don't have to wait around. And the other thing too is we encourage everyone to report every crime, every trespassing, every CPD, because without the reports, we won't be able to see the scope of the problem. That's really important. And as far as tracking, we do not differentiate because of the types of crimes. Theft is lumped in with the rest of the thefts, and we would have to go manually through every type. And so I do not have the stats available.
Okay, thank you. If you can get back to us with the stats, we're kind of trying to gather the data so we can justify the means behind it. Thank you very much. Next up, Captain Jamie Winfrey from Molokai. Jamie.
Hey, good afternoon. Okay, so on Molokai, our main issue is poaching. So in 2022, we had 64 related poaching cases. That includes criminal trespass, reckless endangering, hunting on private property. In 2023, we had 55 documented cases, and this year we have 17. So we pretty much handled it the same way that Hawaii County PD does. We have the same kind of roadblocks, lack of information, inconsistency of reporting. One of the things we can do is educate the people how to report, what kind of information we need to make the arrests, get the convictions. Another solution on Molokai we can do is work with the other agencies to gather information and share that information amongst us, because the poachers are normally the same people doing it over and over again. Also, another thing we can do on Molokai is work with the Molokai Hunting Club. They have permits to hunt. What they do with the deer once they hunt, they have food distributions. They usually have it quarterly. If there's a pattern, we can check out if we're having more poaching cases occurring at this month and it's not within their distribution, we can actually work with them and see if, hey, can we have it more frequently? Maybe that will cut down on the poaching.
Thank you, Jamie. So I just want to elaborate on that. And this has been one of the solutions that we worked on. When we had the overabundance of axis deer, we took it upon ourselves to work with the landowners as well, yeah. And it was a huge help. And Captain Winfrey, thank you for coming back out of retirement. But you know, she worked really well with the community, and we had community meetings. It had a lot of support. But, you know, it was challenged by landowners because we had poachers that were still poaching. And while they were poaching, the blame then fell back on some of the hunting club because they couldn't see that maybe when bullet flew through a house. And so for some of the landowners, they did back off of it. But, you know, it's helped us a lot, I think, to kind of address some of the things that we're talking about. So thank you, Jamie. And then I'd like to follow up with, I think we also have Detective Gordon Sagan from Maui PD as well.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, Senator, I got promoted, so I'm not a detective anymore. I'm actually now acting captain for all of Wailuku Patrol. Everything pretty much the other departments do, and like Captain Winfrey says, is pretty much on Maui, the same kind of roadblocks and stuff like that. I could pull our records again. For us, it's manual. So I had one of my officers pull from 2000 to 2023. We had 9 incidents of theft second of plants and farming equipment, because the theft is actually broken up, yeah, for us in the HRS. And then we have 2 theft of livestock cases that happened on Maui, one in 2022 and one just this year, 2024. Might be underreported for sure, because over here, again, small community, a lot of the ranchers and the farmers, you know, some of them, they don't like have too much dealings with these people that come on their lands. That's what I was told for the most part.
Thank you. And then Honolulu Police Department, Brandon Yamamoto, in person. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members and Chair. Captain Brandon Yamamoto with the Honolulu Police Department, District 8.
So can you just, do you guys deal with the same problems here on the west side or
Yes.
in the ranching community?
Yes, probably most prevalent trespassing. We do run into the problem of underreporting. A lot of the checks that we make with our officers, they're unaware that anything's happening because we don't get the 911 calls coming in.
I think, so I'm gonna, committee members, any questions? Go ahead, Senator
Yeah,
Richards.
thank you. And this is probably a question for all of the police departments. Trespass comes in, how does it get prioritized?
Depending on what calls are currently pending the queue and availability, it may go straight from the call takers to our officers to be dispatched out.
Okay, and granted, if we have a severe crime, I got that part. But I think law enforcement has heard the problem is underreporting because nothing happens. And generally speaking, I think law enforcement, you've heard from the ranchers and farmers, this is something they're passionate about. How do we make that passion be embraced by law enforcement?
As far as law enforcement, we do take every call seriously and we do respond with the utmost. Well, our goal is to alleviate the problems, of course, and enforce the laws.
I realize it's easy because you're in front of me, but we have other jurisdictions here. Any other comments, Evangelista? Can you tell me how this is prioritized in the Big Island, please?
Much the same way as Captain Yamamoto just said. Um, if not trespass, if lacking any other factors such as violence, would probably fall below some other calls like domestic violence or a major traffic accident. Yeah. So
And I can understand that, but is it because it's not much of a crime? Because that's kind of the tone I'm getting. Since it's not that big a deal, it doesn't get the attention. So is that what we need to do as legislators? Highlight this? Would that make your guys' jobs easier?
In terms of highlighting it as a,
Making it more of a crime?
well, up until then, it's, for us, we're getting called to a trespass, which is also the same as responding to a trespass on a school, a shopping center, a residence. We would go and respond and address the situation the same way.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Senator Gates, Representative Gates, thank you for joining us.
No problem.
You and Senator Shimabukuro from the west side.
Mahalo, thank you for having us. For HPD, in terms of repeat offenders, is there ways that we can hold them more accountable in terms of those repeat offenses that continue to happen? If you're dealing with the same individual, I know it has a lot to do with our court systems, but what's your guys' take in terms of enforcement?
Yes, for our enforcement, it's pretty much, first one may be a citation, second arrest, and arrest thereafter. A lot of what you're pertaining to probably would be either on the front end legislative or on the back end, the judicial system, as far as enforcing or enhancing any type of penalties.
Got it. And then in the situation of Cranston Pia, we had hunters on that property that's considered private, and they had guns with them. In terms of the hunting locations that they're in, how do you guys deal with hunters who are using firearms?
If we do get called, is a lot of the issues. We may get called for shots fired in the area. Somebody hears it, does not necessarily know where it's coming from. We would respond, check the area, try to ascertain any evidence or possible suspects. A lot of times there is past tense already. The incident is gone. There's nothing that's futurely occurring after we respond. And it kind of gets mitigated at that level where checks are made and there's no further evidence to go on or leads to go on.
If these hunters are using firearms illegally or on trails illegally, do you guys enforce, because you have concurrent jurisdiction on all properties from my understanding according to the law, but is there times that you guys actually engage? I know DoCare's our enforcement arm when it comes to mountain ranges and Mauka, but HPD gets engaged with those calls as well?
We could enforce those firearms laws as far as encounters with those with firearms out hunting. I do not believe we've had calls or encounters that we actually were called to these people and they were present when we investigated.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And of course, I know I went over time and we were supposed to stop at 2:30, but I'd like to thank, before I finish up, I want to turn this over to Chair to give his closing remarks. Senator Deborah.
Wow. Awesome information that was shared here today. So mahalo to everyone who participated in person and online, and a special mahalo to Dustin Griffith on behalf of the Pia family. As Senator DeCoite said earlier, please express our condolences and aloha to the family on behalf of all of us here. So in my mind today, today's info briefing, this was not just an academic exercise. This is a call to action. Yeah. And regarding ag crimes, this should be a call to action for the entire community, plus all the departments, all the agencies, all the lawmakers to increase penalties. And then to do what I call the 3 Ps. Pursue, prosecute, and punish the offenders to the fullest extent of the law. And in order to do this, it's going to take Laulima, many hands working together. But we've got to do this now. So please contact my office if you have any input. Mahalo.
No, thank you, Senator. With that being said, I completely forgot that we get the prosecuting attorney office here as well, and I want to give them some time. I apologize for that, you
I
know.
was actually hoping that you guys would have forgot.
And we also have them on the line.
I was looking at my watch, it was past 2:30.
I apologize. I got an extra 15 minutes just for you in your office. Thank you.
Okay, I think the Maui prosecutor's there too. So did you want to go first or do you want to? I can go first since I'm right in front of you guys. So I heard the questions that you initially asked the police. And so as far as the crimes, you guys know that we do have some specific crimes related to agriculture. Theft 2, which is theft of agriculture, agricultural products, as well as theft of agricultural commodities. So that's a theft 2. And then we have the theft of livestock, which is also a C felony. So those are all C felonies. Our office, because those are specific statutes, we are able to keep statistics over those things. So I can give that to you guys right now if you want, if that's what you want.
Can you state your name as
Oh,
well?
I'm sorry. My name is Mark Ewan, and I am a deputy prosecuting attorney, and I am speaking on behalf of our office. So as far as stats, I did a 10-year look back period, and I was looking at the numbers that you guys had, like 4 million, and all that's a huge, huge amount. And frankly, I'm surprised because when I did the stats on this, for the felony side, there isn't very many, there weren't many cases that came in. So for example, for the theft of livestock cases, the theft 2 cases, so that's the commodities and agricultural products, we had 0 cases that came in. Well, from 2014, I went back from January 1st, 2014 to now. Theft of livestock, there were 4 cases and 6 defendants. They have come in 2014, 2015, 2020, and 2021. So there were only really 4 cases that came in during that time period. For the misdemeanor side, you guys are probably curious about the trespassing on agricultural lands. Again, surprising, because I only found 7 cases from 2014. So that was in 2015, there were 2 cases, 2017, 2 cases, 2023, there were 3 cases. So that's only a total of 7 cases altogether. Some related cases, the only one that I could accurately look up is a potential cruelty to animal second. That's the kind where if you shoot the animal. I only found 1 case from 2021 where a livestock was shot. And as far as some of the other potential charges, as I think the police have already notified, it's really too difficult to assemble that information. So for example, if it's a theft 4, so if they're only stealing like small kind vegetables or fruits, it would be mixed up with the other thousands of theft 4 cases that we have, like the shopliftings and those kind, that require us to look through every single case. So I could not give you a stat on that. Same with the property damage, which I wasn't aware that was an issue, but people like damaging the vehicle, the tractors, or arson, burning, those kind of things too. I don't have any accurate stats for that.
I guess
Okay.
because they weren't reported. Can we have a copy of that?
Yeah, I can, what I'll do is I can email it to, I think your office
Yeah,
manager,
please.
yes. I can do that. And another thing that was interesting is, and I know somebody mentioned, what can we do to increase the fine, right? So we know it's a petty misdemeanor for the trespass, right? But I think the DUI, I think you guys can make a minimum fine, right? So right now, what people are paying like $28 is from what I hear. But I think you can always make a minimum fine of a certain amount, not to exceed $1,000. Short of that, I guess you could make it a higher penalty, like make it into a misdemeanor, in which you have a possible $2,000 fine. I think one of the questions came up as far as repeat people who keep doing it. If they are continuing to do it and they're convicted, then there's a possible habitual property crime, which is a felony. But again, we're not seeing these cases, so it's kind of hard, I guess, to actually get habitual property crime. But that's a potential thing that you can do, and that is a felony. Yeah, so I think those were the things that I did look up. I know one of your questions is that can we do better stats with the other kind of cases? We potentially can in our computer system. I think the other islands might be using it the same thing too, but I have to ask our IT people. But you can make a special category for certain things. But again, it's going to depend on the person who's inputting it. But they can knock off something like agriculture, for example. If I sing a citation and it's a theft for example, somebody stealing papaya, you could maybe check it off. Like I said, I have to ask our IT people. But that's a potential thing that you could do to keep stats for agricultural type crimes.
Thank you. Would the other prosecuting attorney want to add anything, or you?
I got a question.
Okay, Senator Richardson.
Yeah, I always have questions. Okay, you talked about there was 4 livestock theft cases in your time frame.
I think there was, let's see, there were 4 cases, 6 defendants. So 2 cases were co-defendants.
Okay, so
Yes.
how did those cases end up?
Yeah, so one, I looked that up too. One was declined because the main witness was a suspect. Because that person was caught with the livestock. And he dimed somebody out, or she dimed somebody out. So we didn't consider her to be too credible. So that one we didn't charge. Another case was declined for insufficient evidence. I don't remember what the evidence was in that one. In 2020, that one case that we did, 2 suspects, we charged that one. One pled guilty. The other one was dismissed by the court. It went to the court system, and then it was dismissed on a Rule 48 violation because we took too much time to bring the case. I guess one of the witnesses must have not have been available.
Okay.
And then there's one more. 2021, there was one case that we declined. And that was a weird one. But the pig was outside of the farm area, so we don't know where the pig, I guess when they saw the suspect with the pig, they were on the roadway already. So we don't know if the pig had escaped or if those guys chased the pig out of the farm. We're not sure. So that's why we couldn't prove that one.
Okay, and so the one of all of that, one made it through the courts.
Yes.
What was the penalty?
That one was, so that's a C felony, and I will find out what happened to that person. As I recall, that person did not have our records, so I doubt anything serious happened to him, but I have to go look it up.
Okay, I would like to follow up
Sure.
on that, but you highlight exactly why we are here today. Because this is not serious. What's the big deal? The pig ran away, okay, so it's free game. We have someone who you said was a felony, but no prior, so no big deal. This is the problem, and I'm not directing it at you. I'm directing it at the system. This is a problem. We don't give it the serious consideration that I firmly believe we should. Chair, I'm not going to take any more time. Thank you. I appreciate you talking story, and I look forward to the follow-up on that.
Thank you,
Yeah,
and then
please give me your card.
Thank you. I'll do a final question, Senator Favela.
Okay, so I know we're talking about ag, but the general question that came from Representative Gates, you guys have this power within you guys' purview that you solemnly use. We had it an umbrella over with the federal, with weed and seed. But I found out that we don't have to reinstate that because it is within the prosecuting office to do a geographic restriction. So if the guys are paying in Okole and continuing to do the same crime, like they did in Anakuli Beach Park and the other parks, stealing the copper and letting them go, stealing them, coming home, you guys have within you guys' jurisdiction to do a geographic restriction. But from what I heard is that majority of, not you, but the people in your field decides not to use that provision. So can you get back to us, because something that I've been working with Steve Alms on it.
Yeah, so just to answer a little bit, so geographical restrictions will work pre-trial and if they're on probation. So, so that's how it would work. So before the trial starts, he's charged, then you do a geo restriction, then yeah, he cannot go back. Or if it's a part of his probation, then he cannot go back. But once the probationary period is over, or once he's served a sentence, then we don't have a hammer to like tell him, hey, you cannot be around and stuff like that.
So that question then, how much of that you guys ever did in the last 10 years?
For geographical restrictions,
Yeah.
for what kind of cases?
You choose. Because as far as what I'm knowing, is that's the reason why our parks and our communities is vague with people that hide and do crime, because it's never ever soundly used. So you name one, and how much have you guys actually did?
That went out. I'm gonna have to use my escape mechanism here. I'm not sure how to answer that. Yeah, I would have to look it up, but
So can
you're
you-
right, you're
but
right
can you
though.
let us know?
No, but you're right though. It's before Steve, before the weed and seed and the safe and sound, geographical restrictions were rarely ever used. So you're totally correct on that. And I would probably say it's none, but I have no idea.
Yeah. How about if you can just let us know? Because we want to change, we want to work with, oh, she's not here, the Attorney General to put a little bit more bite in these kind of crimes, because it's getting out of hand already.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, so I know I get the Big Island prosecutor on as well as the Maui. If there's something different you guys want to elaborate from what the Honolulu prosecutor said, can you guys, I'll give you the floor. We got about I would say less than 5 minutes, but, if you guys would unmute and go ahead.
Yeah, Senator Coit, this is Andrew Martin from the Maui Prosecutor's Office. I'll be real quick and cut to the chase here. We don't track ag data separately, but I understand why you folks want the data and can utilize the data, but I can tell you from our perspective, the best intel we can get is to collaborate with the ranchers directly. And in terms of recommendations, that would be my #1 recommendation. Mr. Miyamoto pointed to it earlier. I know the ranchers here meet, I think, 2 to 3 times a year on Maui. The last time we joined that meeting, I think was in June of this past summer. I know MPD attends those meetings regularly. And to the Maui ranchers that are in the room there, please reach out to my office because we're going to be reaching out to you. That's really the best way that we can get the best intel on our side and provide you with the information that you need so that we can work together to build strong cases. I think from your perspective on the committee, I think looking to, I know Mr. Ewan, and it was previously referenced to the habitual offenders. Habitual property crime as it's defined right now requires a minimum of either 2 combination of felonies or misdemeanors or 3 petty misdemeanors to even get to that level. Maybe look at reducing the number of triggering offenses if the most recent offense is agricultural related, because then you take the discretion out of the judge's hands. They don't have the option to just give a slap on the wrist. They have to give some sort of minimum sentence in terms of a jail term. And so I think that's an area where you can make real progress in terms of getting minimum terms set. And then look to forfeiture of the instrumentalities. If they are poaching, we heard Captain Winfrey's, and that's my experience too. I haven't been in the courtroom in terms of prosecuting these cases in a few years now, but on Molokai in particular, yeah, night hunting and poaching, that's where we see the most cases come into our office. So if it's not just, prosecution for those offenses and usually the gun-related offenses, but if they're losing their firearms or their vehicles are subject to forfeiture because of use, then I think that's another thing that we can look at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then last, I'm sorry, the Big Island, don't want to leave you out.
Hello, can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Mahalo for the opportunity to participate today and for coordinating today's meeting. First of all, condolences to the Pia Ohana. It's kind of sad that we have to have a tragic event like that to occur for all of us to get together, but sometimes that's what it takes, I guess. Agriculture on our island is very important. I'm sure you've all heard from Senator Richards. And, you know, as far as with the most common types of offenses that we have, criminal trespass on ag land, ag theft, which as noted earlier, falls under theft in the second degree, theft of livestock. So similarly, as noted by the other agencies, it's difficult for our office to track as well because our current case management system aggregates all those offenses together. So criminal trespass on ag land also falls under the standard criminal trespass section, and then ag theft falls under theft too. So when to do a run, we'd have to do a manual search. On the private land side, we do have petty misdemeanor offenses, and most of those, a lot of times, are initiated by DOCARE. I have a deputy specially assigned to work with DOCARE for our ag theft or ag-related offenses. I have a deputy specially assigned to work with who works regularly with our community and policing section, including with Lieutenant Durr. I'd like to thank Lieutenant Durr. He shared a lot of things that are going on our island, especially with the app and the form that they've standardized and they recently implemented, as well as HPD's work in securing the calibrated scales. That was a challenge for a long time on our island. Another thing that's been a challenge that wasn't noted earlier is that there actually is times when law enforcement actually besides being unable to identify suspects, there's times when we're unable to identify victims, believe it or not, because police actually do encounter individuals with large amounts of produce who are not able to provide a movement certificate for that produce, but we're not able to identify who the victim, the rancher, the farmer is who owns the produce. So we're working on making streamlined approaches to contacting farmers and ranchers. And I know that's an ongoing project that HPD has. One of the things that's unfortunate is that criminals oftentimes look at farmers and ranchers as easy targets, and it's because of the layout of the area, right? Remote areas, large acreage, little surveillance. Sometimes they have very few anti-theft measures, and to make matters worse, as noted earlier, the courts oftentimes view ag theft as a non-violent crime. On Hawaii Island, it's no secret we have a substantial overcrowding issue at HCCC, and it's not an excuse, but oftentimes it's used by the courts, by the judges in releasing offenders. Where you have a low-level offense, like a petty misdemeanor, the chances of us getting bail maintained on a case like that when it's charged is very few and far in between. Earlier, the Farm Bureau did provide an example of a case where it took 1 year to get through the system. That was a petty misdemeanor offense our office handled, and it actually involved more than one court date to do a trial. And at the culmination of the case, we were successful. However, it resulted in a sentence of community service, which I think is frustrating to the victims, to the prosecutors involved, and to the police who investigated the case. Bail amounts for even our felony offenses are very low. That frustrates a lot of times victims and police and our office. One of the other things that's been a challenge in the past is that, sorry, I'm trying to summarize as much as possible. Let me share a little bit of the things that our office has done. I believe in like a multifaceted approach to addressing crime. So one of the things that we do have an investigators unit. I try to utilize them as much as possible to supplement local police efforts. And we've been utilizing them to go out into our farmers markets, talk to local vendors. There's been reports that stolen produce has been sold at farmers markets. So we've been having them go out, do education, and make regular visits around the larger farmers markets around the island. And basically explaining to the vendors, what's the impact of purchasing stolen fruits, vegetables, the current law regarding movement certificates. And as a result, we've been able to identify persons of interest. We've been able to work and share collaboratively with police about some of these possible persons of interest. We've shared photos of persons of interest to vendors, which I believe has been helpful as a deterrent for them not to purchase stolen produce. And the other thing that we've been working to do is we utilize our office's social media platforms to share and update the public about what's going on in our community as far as if we have a case that's been charged, we can provide some awareness as to those things, and we also provide them updates as to what the current laws are. just a few suggestions that maybe the legislature can work on. I think it'd be really great if the legislature could work on assisting farmers and ranchers directly, providing them with funding and
No,
assistance.
so what we're gonna do is, and thank you, I know we gotta wrap it up, but I wanted to thank you for that. What I wanted to do going forward was, this is a lot of information to intake. I wanna task Vice Chair Richards to head up on task force. Try and look at some of the existing bills that we do have as we continue to move them. I will echo the same sentiments as my Chair Gabbard. Again, our condolences to the family. We never want to see this ever happen again. I want to thank all of you for being here, and as well as all of you on Zoom, to our ranchers and our farmers that have endured much, much heartache throughout the years. I mean, it's sad that we had to come to this point, but it's information. Of course, I do have in front of me theft in the second degree as well as the theft in livestock. And I mean, this is as weak of laws that we have. About 8 years ago, this law actually came before us. And my comment on the floor when I voted no, because I thought this was the weakest law that we had, I was then given a slap on the wrist to say, do you know you voted against my bill? And I said, do you know if your stuff got ripped off, you would want your stuff back? Or if your cattle got shot, you'd want the value of that. And we've come to this portion again to make sure we gotta be able to pursue and prosecute these guys and make sure that those that have had an admirable profession such as yourself not have to defend yourself all the time and your properties. So with that being said, I want to thank all of you. I wanted to thank my committee for staying late, all of you, as well as all of the department. And again, my extending back to our West Side lawmakers, thank you for joining us. And then we will probably convene, gather the rest of the information, and then also reach out to all of you guys. So just wanted to say mahalo and thank you. And this briefing is adjourned. Mahalo.